Hello, everybody. Welcome to Unveiling the Truth. I'm your host, Mark Howitt, and today's date is January 11th, 2014. Thanks, everybody, for joining me today, and thanks to all the viewers and the listeners out there that are tuned in to the Truth Broadcast Network right now for this episode. Really great being here with you guys today. We have a special guest today, Mike Paczesny, who does the show The Rundown Live, and he also runs a couple websites. He's involved with We Are Change in his local area, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, I believe. And he's also a really great DIY activist who's always doing his own work, putting out as much news articles and information as possible to the public to spread awareness about global issues, be on top of the news. And he also taught me a lot about video editing, video production, just all those sorts of things that we need to know here as broadcasters, because when I came on board I didn't really know too much about it, and he definitely helped me through that phase. So I definitely wanted to get him on the show here to help other people out on maybe getting some information on how they can get more involved, as well as sharpening up their skills so that they can become online activists themselves, or getting involved with the fight as much as they can. And Mike's definitely got a wealth of information in regards to that, so I'm really looking forward to having him on the show today. I definitely want to thank everybody for joining me today. Today is the second broadcast of the new year, and I wanted to let you guys know a bit about the shows that I have scheduled in the near future coming up before I bring Mike on the show today. So today we have obviously Mike Paczesny from the Rundown Live. Next week I'll be doing a piece on criminals in government, exposing a lot of the links and connections between criminals that are in government or that have ties with the government, a bit about the history behind that, and some evidence and names, and obviously some information that should help you guys, maybe if you guys want to do your own independent investigations on these things. It'll definitely give you guys something to look into there. And then the following week, we have Tommy Blackhat, who's co-host of The Enemy Within Radio, which is a show based out of the UK. He's definitely been involved with this stuff for many years, and he's got quite an interesting story to tell. I had the pleasure of speaking with him a couple weeks ago about things, and he definitely had a wealth of information, so I thought it'd be great to have him on the show. The following week, February 1st, I'll be doing an episode on the truth about fluoride. Definitely going to be showing you guys lots of evidence, lots of information that you might not have been aware of, as well as portions of an interview I did with one of Canada's leading fluoride fighters, I guess you could say. So that'll be quite the interesting show. The following week, February 8th, Judith Ferry Baker, author of the book Me and Lee, will be joining me on the show. I have a wealth of questions to ask her. Lots of information should be exposed on that show, so I'm really looking forward to discussing things with her. And then February 15th, the following week, this is a newer episode. I've been researching this for the last week and a half extensively, trying to find out as much information as I can about this subject, and that is Hitler's escape to Argentina. Many people believe that he killed himself in the bunker, but from the information and the evidence that I've been able to pile up, it's definitely not the case. In my opinion, he died many years later, and he was allowed to survive. So I definitely look forward to going into that subject and discussing Hitler's escape to Argentina. So that'll be a very interesting show for anybody out there who doesn't know much about the information or hasn't heard anything about that cover-up. So I've trying to do as much research as I can on the subject, as well as sharpening my information on World War II, what happened there. I've been studying a lot about the battles and stuff, as well as reading the book Me and Lee. I'm almost finished that, so I've been keeping busy trying to study as much information as I can and try to get some new materials for you guys that is not regularly or commonly discussed by the media or by even the general public, for that matter. So without further ado, I'm going to invite Mike to come on board here. I know he's standing by waiting, so I'm going to give him a call there. And here we go. Hi, Mike.
Hey, Mark, what's up, man?
Hey, how's it going?
Good, good, good. Glad to be here. What's up?
Right on. Glad you could join me for the show today. I'm just adjusting the volume levels and all that fun stuff there. I'm
Yeah,
just
you
gonna
know
get you
how
on
we do it
video.
on Truth Broadcast. We gotta do everything on the fly, even tech support.
Yeah, yeah. I guess you could say that you're Truth Broadcast Network's tech support guy because you've definitely helped me out with a lot of problems that I've
Yeah,
had.
I don't know how that happened, but I guess it did somehow.
Yeah. Well, I think you're the most skilled at it, anyways, because you seem to know a lot about it, and you definitely did teach me a lot about all sorts of things when it comes to this sort of aspect of activism, and all that stuff. You know what I mean? So, definitely great to have you on the show here. And I definitely have a bunch of questions that I wanted to ask you, just so the viewers out there, people who don't know who you are, can get some information about yourself and how you're involved with this, what made it come about, and as well as some of your experiences, your more memorable experiences in this field of work, I guess, if you will. So I guess to start it off, if you could introduce yourself to the viewers out there, anybody who hasn't caught your show yet, and explain a bit about yourself, that'd be great.
Well, I'm Mike Paczesny. Currently, I guess my main project right now is the Rundown Live, which is a radio show a lot of you guys already listen to, thank God. But, if you haven't checked this out, we're Monday through Friday, and we just hang out and we talk about real issues, things that may or may not be in the mainstream, but, a lot of fringe topics as well. And, there needs to be a place for that. And I think, mainstream media has gotten further and further away from that. Even mainstream radio. So I mean, we had to bring it back on the internet. So that's what I'm doing now.
Yeah, that's good. That's cool. So yeah, you do this every day, Monday to Friday, except Saturday and Sundays. But still, that's 5 days a week broadcasting. That's a big difference from what I do. I do a weekly show every Saturday night just for a couple hours. But you're doing this every day, Monday to Friday. That must be pretty hectic for you just to schedule guests and keep on top of everything.
Right, right. A lot of people think, for the people that don't really follow the Rundown Live, they think we have like this huge production staff and people working for us. It's just me and Kristan. You know what I mean? We do literally everything. We schedule all the guests. I build the website. You know what I mean? What you see is what you get, and it's just us two guys pretty much. So there is no crew behind the Rundown Live like other certain alternative media outlets.
Yeah, for sure. And that's the great thing about this too is it is DIY. I think every broadcaster is doing their own stuff, doing their own production and their own investigation. We're pretty much independent from each other, but we do work together for the network, which is great. So what got you involved in wanting to do this, and how many years have you been doing the broadcasts?
Well, the broadcast, it's been a year for the Rundown Live. Oh, well, almost a year. We started in probably late April, May. So we're approaching a year with the Rundown. It feels like a year anyway. But I was involved with We Are Change, which I heard you mention in the intro. Prior to that, and I was doing like protests. I attended Bilderberg, NATO conference in Chicago. We went and protested the G8, well, covered, so I mean, I've been involved in some things prior to the show, and what really got me motivated, I think I was just always like a conspiracy guy, even as a child. Like I was that kid in grade school, literally like third grade, that found the presents in the basement, and I was like, you know what, Santa's not real, kids. Like everybody get with the program. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of
So
those myths.
I ruined it for everybody. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, that's cool though that you've always been independent and doing this kind of stuff. You mentioned that you were an activist with We Are Change before that. Is that through the Milwaukee chapter?
Right, right. Well, pretty much when We Are Change first started, it was just a group of individuals with a common cause, and there wasn't a We Are Change chapter in the Milwaukee area. So pretty much I just took it upon myself to organize it, get people involved, rally them up online specifically. So there was a place, at least people, if we couldn't be active in the streets all the time, there'd be a way to find information. And this was right around the time Occupy was picking up as well, probably in 2011.
Yeah.
So these groups were just starting to really pick up steam. So activists were looking for ways to connect at that time. So We Are Change and Occupy became big parts of that for me.
Yeah, that's cool. That's for sure. So We Are Change. Anybody who's not aware of that, that's just like a local activist group that has chapters around. I think it's all over the world by now. We Are Change is definitely one of the more common names that you hear about when it comes to activist groups and movements, just like the Occupy, like you stated. Yeah, in 2011, it must have been one of the first, well, not one of the first chapters to open, but it was definitely in the first wave, I guess you could say. It had to have been.
I think I missed the first wave because We Are Change had a really strong push in like maybe 2008,
Oh, yeah?
2007. And there was a lot of Chicago was really popular, Kansas City, San Antonio, and some other, Los Angeles. A lot of other big cities caught on. But what happened was they kind of fizzled out into 2011, and Occupy. A lot of guys crossed over, and
Oh, yeah.
they just fizzle out. These groups fizzle out. So I pushed really hard in 2010, 2011 with We Are Change Milwaukee, and got us up there, and then finally got to meet up with Luke and get to interact with the official We Are Change, which was good. Got a little recognition, put me on the activist map as far as the radar of people online, putting out material and stuff. All of a sudden, you get a little attention and it brings people in, which is good. It's hard without a little help, because otherwise, you're just another guy on YouTube.
Yeah, absolutely. I understand fully about that. It's hard to do things yourself, especially when you're doing this kind of stuff. And who'd want to do it themselves? Really, like it's pretty impossible if you don't have anybody helping you out. One voice is not as strong as many voices, which is why groups like We Are Change are really effective. And as well as that's why I started the World Public Union. I'll admit, though, I wasn't aware that We Are Change was as old as you said it was. I thought it really sparked up near the Occupy. I thought it was a bit older than that, but I guess Occupy just helped push it forward, I think, and get more members involved and stuff.
Right. Well, truthfully, if we want to talk about We Are Change for a brief moment, I believe during the Occupy movement there was a split. Just prior to the Occupy movement, there was some friction within We Are Change, and it became one of those things where a lot of people went separate ways, and that's why you don't really see active We Are Change organizations. There's only a few. We Are Change Connecticut with Jeff Durkin and Steve Botelli, and who else? Really, who else is there? You have the frontline guys who are still left in New York City, Gabe Brown and a few others who still go to Ground Zero and hold signs every day for 9/11 Truth. But that's about it. Even myself, I'm guilty of taking on the project of the Rundown Live and not really pushing We Are Change Milwaukee. But I think there's reasons behind that. We don't really have to go into that now.
Yeah, it is. Plus, it's hard. You know what I mean? If you're doing broadcasts and you're doing all this stuff that you're doing, it must be hard just to find time to do other projects and take on new things. But I understand that you feel it's important to do so, but it must be just really hard. So I was just wondering as well if you could explain a little bit to people out there how the Milwaukee activist scene is. Because I've been to Milwaukee myself, and I had a wonderful experience there playing music there, but I was never involved with activism in Milwaukee. So if you could tell the viewers what it's like there, and what are some of the more, I guess, stronger groups, or what topics and subjects people like to cover there and are concerned about.
Well, I know the activist community is growing. Milwaukee's always been a strong activist scene. There's a lot of movement here. It's hard to say really, because there's different kinds of activism, because we have a lot of really hardcore liberal types who are really hardcore immigration activists and things like this, who don't necessarily fit into the activism that we do. You're not necessarily going to see me, pushing hard immigration rally. Although I'm not saying I disagree with this. I'm just saying you're not going to see me at that type of rally for the most part. So there's a lot of activism in Milwaukee. GMOs, March on Monsanto, all these type of events. They all come through here, and you see good showings unless the weather is crappy, because Wisconsin, I'm sure, like Canada, during the winter months can be hectic. Even the last march against Monsanto, I forgot, just what was it, October, it rained on us, which we still attended it, But the group was maybe 10% of what it would have been.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the first one that originally happened was much larger all around the world, I think. There's more people
Right.
involved, and I think after that first wave of protest, people maybe said, okay, that's good for me, But yeah, it's
Right.
good to hear.
I think there are a lot of people that they get their one protest done for the year, and they're like, I've done my activism. And,
Yeah.
They kind of go back into the closet, the activist closet, they say, and then they close the door and lock it, and then they're safe in there for a while until something else happens. But you know what? That's what me and Mark are here trying to do. We're trying to, you don't have to go back into the activist closet after you attend the march against Monsanto. You can come on out, every night online. If you don't want to start your own show like we've done, at least hang out with us and find out what's actually going on. Hear some legitimate news with legitimate broadcasters. None of us are being paid here to say anything. These are real thoughts. So that's the best thing about what we're doing, I think.
Absolutely. We're not, we're not members of the John Birch Society, or we're not involved in anything like that. You know what I mean? We're straight up legitimate, real people here working together to get the word out.
First chance I get, Mark, I'm joining up the CFR, John Birch, all of it, man. I'm gonna be the traitor of the liberty movement.
Yeah, it's hilarious.
So they think until I get on the inside.
Yeah. One thing I find really awesome about your work too, Mike, is that you write articles and you do things like that, like original pieces and stuff, which you host on your websites from time to time.
I try anyway. I'm not the best. Writing isn't my strong point, but it's nice and short and sweet and gets to the point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's awesome. I was wondering too if you could tell the viewers, because you have another website where people can get news stories and links and stuff, bigpzone.com. If you could explain to people what that website is. Was that around before the Rundown Live?
Right. Big P Zone was my first personal blog. Basically, I was working purely on Facebook and with wearechange.org. And basically, I just, I had to expand. You know what I mean? I wasn't doing enough just working in one organization under a label. And I figured, to do the most I can do, I have to start something new. So I started the Rundown Live. But Big P Zone was basically the hub before Rundown Live. That's where all my articles would go. And initially, the Rundown went there for, the first 40 episodes or so until we finally got that website up. But Big P Zone basically now is just a mirror of all the information that I post. So you can find anything that's going to be on the Rundown will be on bigpzone.com. Anything that's on my YouTube will be there because it's my personal blog. But you're not going to see anything on Big P Zone that isn't on the Rundown Live.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering, because I figured that Big P Zone was something that was an earlier, I guess, prototype or website that you had for this kind of information. So
Right.
What got you essentially to want to start broadcasting and doing video and getting on the radio and stuff?
Well, honestly, I've always wanted to be on the radio ever since I was a kid. I've listened to the radio for a long, long, long time. Ever since I was young. I was like a weird kid. I was telling kids that Santa wasn't real. I was listening to Dr. Laura on AM radio, you know what I'm saying? And I was like thinking aliens were attacking me and stuff. So my whole upbringing was a little slightly different. That's obviously why I'm the way I am now. So basically, radio was just something that I wanted to do always. And I felt growing up that, I didn't have to do things the standard way, the standard, you have to do things in this order and you have to get a certificate. No. If you want to do something, you just do it. You know what I mean? So eventually you get to a point where you can do it. And it took a little time to develop the radio thing. I didn't just go right into it. Like I said, I had years of activism before the radio. So broadcasting kind of came naturally. It was something I always had in the back of my mind. But then once I built credibility, friends, a network of activists, I felt that maybe I can let my self out, let me out and see what happens. And here we are today talking on Unveiling the Truth.
Awesome. Yeah, that's cool. Like, I think that's how a lot of people get into it. It's just, it's like you said, you just have to do it. You realize that nobody else is going to do it for you. If you want to do something, it is in your reach to do it. You just got to do it. And education and getting a diploma and all that stuff is almost unnecessary in a lot of instances for a lot of fields. And that's another topic I wanted to discuss with you today is your video editing skills and just your independent DIY, balls to the wall kind of workflow I see coming out of you. It really is. You don't stop. It's just go, go, go. And you're really, really talented at all the production side of things. How did you get into that? Were you always into production and arts and stuff like that?
Yeah, I was always on the more artistic side. I was never like a good drawer. Like I would never sit down like and do pencil art, but like collages and things like that in art class when I was in high school. I would make really cool stuff using like magazines and stuff. So when you guys look at like the flyers for every show, that's where a lot of that stuff like just comes out of me. You know what I mean? It's just expression, and we talk about that all the time. It's just a simple thing, a simple image every day that's just a flyer, but you can really, portray a lot of information through something like that. I mean, there's a lot of symbolism there if you really sit down and look at each thing. I specifically add things into the image, so it can be analyzed by people because, isn't that something that's been done throughout history? We're just taking it and, using it in a positive way. Instead of putting in the all-seeing eye, we make it into something fun. And we put in Arnold talking on the phone and things like that, and make it fun. So, I forgot what you asked me, but we're talking about Arnold on the phone now.
Oh, just about your video production skills and all that stuff. Right. For anybody out there listening, if you could quickly, I understand that you use probably Photoshop, is it? And Vegas for video editing.
Right. Those are my main two. And to me, I don't really have video editing skills. I self-taught myself. I've been editing things like this for a long time because previous to activism even, I was in music similar to yourself. So I was making flyers for bands and, shows and things like that. So that's where I started messing around in Paint and Photoshop, and then naturally carried it over to the stuff we're doing now. But as far as what I do, a lot of Photoshop every day. I'm in Photoshop more than the average person, let me tell you. And Vegas is where I'm at. A lot of people like Adobe, and Adobe is probably has more to offer as far as video editing. But I'm a Vegas guy. It's done well for me so far, but I'm thinking about making the switch, definitely.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
For the video editors that understand what I'm sure there's people out there that know exactly what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah, totally. I as well, I was actually using Windows Movie Maker, if you're familiar with that program.
I was there. That's where I started. We might as well talk about this, because, as well as activism, obviously you have to have a life as well. So I, with my buddies here in town, they had a show that they were developing called Two Dudes Review. And I actually worked with them, developing some of this stuff. So I learned, video editing through Windows Movie Maker originally.
Yeah, it's such a basic program. But for all you listeners out there who might be interested in getting into video editing yourself or image manipulation, picture editing and all that kind of stuff. If you have Windows, usually you could find it right in your start menu. It's in your programs. It comes with Windows. It's called Windows Movie Maker, and it's so simple to use. It's very easy. And if you could learn how to use Windows Movie Maker, then when you progress to other programs like Sony Vegas or After Effects and other things like that, you can it gives you a bit of a head start into learning how to use those more technical programs. So and also Paint is another one. It's right on your computer most of the time, comes with Windows, and then you could progress to Adobe Photoshop. And you can get it for free if you download torrents. It usually comes with a crack and a password, so you can get the programs for free and use them for free. That's what activists do. I'm sure of it. So
for
anybody out there.
Well, speaking of Aaron Swartz, it's been a year since his untimely passing.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's exactly what he did. What you just said is what Aaron Swartz was trying to do, which, a lot of people don't know enough about Aaron Swartz. He was just simply trying to share information with people that didn't have the funds to afford the information, because these high class elite schools get these books, and low class poor people, especially internationally, have no access to this stuff unless they have $50,000. And that's why Aaron Swartz got charged, and that's why he ended up hanging himself, because of the pressure he faced. 35 years they were gonna make an example of him, as well as who else, Bradley Manning and Assange and Snowden, and that all of them,
Brandon Raub, yeah.
Right. Well, yeah, specifically the hacking, the online activists, you know what I mean, the anonymous types, those guys who are on the forefront, because they're not far off from what we're talking about right now with video editing. Although it seems like a jump, it's really not, because once you're in the online activism community, it all links up, whether you're editing videos, making music, or literally rooting into computers. We're all hanging out in the same crowds. And, we got to stick up for each other. And, I had to mention, it's been a year. He was a great guy. And if you don't know enough about Aaron Swartz, you really need to look into what happened with him and, the information that he was trying to get out there.
He was definitely a freedom fighter, and in my opinion, I don't think he hung himself. I think it was another one of those fake suicides that was all too familiar with the 9/11 and JFK. Like when you start stepping on big toes, a lot of people shoot themselves in the head. You know what I mean? Or they say it is, and the bullet wounds from the back. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, here we go all over again. That, in my opinion, I think they wanted to silence him because it
can be done
court
very easily. I mean, look at Michael Hastings. There's tons of questions about that incident. So, I mean, as far as Aaron Swartz, whether or not he did it or somebody else did it, the point is he's gone now, so problem solved for them, right? I mean, that's the way I look at it.
But he did start something, because we're talking about it right now. We're talking about him. His name is known now, and anybody listening who doesn't know him, check his work out, check what he's done, and, keep promoting that message, because they're treating it like terrorism is what they're doing. People like us who are independently producing videos, doing broadcasts that are exposing the truth and government corruption and lies, were considered almost terrorism, like online hackers or whatever the terms are going to come up with for us. I'm sure you feel the heat from internet suppression and probably YouTube blocking videos. Could you explain a little bit about your experiences with that uphill battle?
Well, right. They, specifically with YouTube and copyrights, don't try to make money on YouTube, because if you're putting out any content that isn't fully 100% filmed by you, they're going to mark up your channel, and they're going to disable it, because, you put a news clip in there that's owned by like NBC7, and they're like, you can't have that in there, even though, you're using it for the same reason they are, letting people know about the story. No, you can't do that. So, I mean, the copyright stuff with YouTube and the internet, it's very shady. I mean, obviously, this is to control information. This is to keep the small man down. They are so afraid of what is happening right now, which is tons and tons of people standing up online, putting their full personalities and views out there, and actually gaining followings. And see, that's the dangerous thing. They thought, well, maybe people just put their thoughts out there, and we'll be able to spy on them, and everything will be fine. We'll just have all their metadata. But see, the difference was people actually started putting out good information. Adam Kokesh and others, you know what I mean? Where there's people that really put out things that make you think, and all of a sudden you're starting political movements, and all of a sudden these things that they fear so much are being used on the same system that they developed basically to spy on you and suppress you. So that's why you see these guys getting snatched up, and all the prominent figures in the online activist community, as well as local activist communities are literally being put in jail and, charged with crimes and, basically face all these charges. I forgot, Andrew, I forgot his last name, Andrew Weedman or something like that.
Is that the guy who got set up with the pornography on his computer?
No. This guy was just, I forgot his last name, but another hacking type. He changed a few numbers of a URL, and now he's, doing 10 years in federal prison, and it was just basically a mistake that a tech guy made that developed the website. It wasn't even his fault, Andrew, but he discovered it, and he went into the information. All of a sudden, like you mentioned, Mark, he's a terrorist, and wasn't terrorism something that was a real enemy? It wasn't like a guy on a computer. Like a terrorist, I always imagined was somebody with like a bomb or an AK-47, something like that. Not a guy that's changing a 0 to a 1 on a computer. That's not a terrorist. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And these are the times that we're facing, but I'm glad to see that there is still people that are keeping up with this, and they have no fear. They're not going to be intimidated or scared to stop doing this. They're going to keep going no matter what, full tilt. That's what we need. We need more and more people, which is why I thought it'd be awesome to have you on the show so we could discuss how easy it is to become an independent activist and DIY activist, and also, give them some information about how they could sharpen up their skills and give them some insight on what it's like. Just being regular guys like ourselves, just coming forward and doing this kind of stuff. So it's really great to hear that. One thing also I wanted to discuss with you about your show and stuff like that is how you got to meet Kriston, because Kriston is your co-host of the Rundown Live. It's not only you on there, but the show has 2 hosts. So I was just wondering if you could let people know how you met Kriston and how you guys developed the show and stuff like that.
Well, Kriston came on, I think it was about episode 35, and basically I had planned on doing the show, you know what I mean, and I had an original co-host, John Kay from NGO News. Didn't work out. He didn't have the time to do it. So I'd always seen Kriston around posting in the Milwaukee groups on We Are Change Milwaukee, his articles, things like that. So I figure, I'll get him on the show as a guest and, talk to him. So basically we talked a few times, and basically I said, I need a co-host, man, and I'm liking the things you're talking about. I think we have a good chemistry, and we might be able to develop something, because at that point the show was really still it still is, you know what I mean, even though we're 180 shows in, it's always developing. So I mean, at that point we just I took him on. I said, let's start Monday, you'll just be with me in the co-host slot, and next thing you know, here we are today after hundreds of awesome guests that we never thought we'd have. Kriston
definitely seems to be informed about a lot of issues. He knows a lot about what's going on, which is great because he brings a different kind of perspective to the table, which is why I find your show interesting.
Right, he definitely brings alternate perspectives on certain things that I don't necessarily I may not be researched in them or necessarily even agree with Kriston. So that's a good thing, whereas, a lot of shows have, not a bad thing, only one perspective. We, a lot of times, every issue we're talking about, we have literally 2 perspectives or more every show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And one thing I've noticed, too, about your show and the schedule that comes out for your show, if you look at the history and the archives of all your shows, you've had some pretty incredible guests on your shows. You guys have definitely had a lot of guests from all over the place, different issues, different topics. You don't really pigeonhole yourselves in one area. You guys are really open to different ideas and different guests on the show, which is how I became a guest on your show. Even you reached out to me while I was on the March of Freedom, and that's how I met you and Kriston, actually. Could you tell the viewers out there who some of the best guests you've had on your show, and some of the interesting experiences you've had as a broadcaster with these guests?
Well, I don't know who the best have been. You know what I mean? We've had some great shows. Some of the shows that felt like they were not good shows ended up being some of the most watched. Funniest shows. So I mean, like, as far as names, we've had everybody: Tom Woods, Sean and Sean Stone, Tyrell Ventura. So I mean, I couldn't even name off all the hundreds of people. Rosa Corey, so many people on so many different topics, and we try to look for people that are putting themselves out there, but also putting out really good information. It can't be anything that's really suspect. It's got to be something that's really solid, like this person's doing it for the right reasons and they have some foundation. You know what I mean? We don't really like to, just put random crazies on, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, for sure. One thing as a broadcaster I've noticed is it is hard at times to find guests to come on the show. It's not so much that it's hard to find guests, but if you're not sending out emails, which is something I don't do actually, I never email people and say, hey, do you want to come on the show? I don't know why I don't do that, but I wait for people to email me and ask to come on the show. But I think right now I'm gonna have to change my my initiatives.
You're definitely going to have to change your ways, Mark, because let me tell you, they're not gonna come to you, bro. You're gonna have to put some lines out. You're gonna have to put hundreds of lines out. See, that's the thing. If you're only doing one show a week, you're pretty much set. You don't have to put out the lines. But with guys like us, 5 days a week, we literally have lines out everywhere, so we can have guests that you guys will know. I mean, and that's the cool thing. As we've grown on the rundown, we've actually been able to get more and more people that are recognizable, like you mentioned.
Yeah, like Tyrell Ventura. That's really cool that you had him on. It'd be great if you could have Jesse Ventura on eventually. And you know what I mean?
Trust me, we're working on it. We have big names coming up this week. I mean, we have Barry Goldwater Jr. I know we got Chris Don's gonna be mad, but we have Chuck Baldwin coming on, and that's not even on the schedule yet. So I mean, we have a bunch of awesome guests lined up, and we're always trying to get bigger and better names, and always bring on the guests who are giving us good information every time they're on as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's great, and it must be hard for you to keep up with doing it 5 days a week, which is what we were talking about earlier, especially getting guests, which is why I could see how you got the line out there all the time. And that's something I've even got to do, only doing once a week. I definitely need to start sending out some emails to have people on the show to discuss things, because it's like you said, it's not as common when they do reach out to you to do an interview. You know what I mean? So
I had to laugh because I just glanced at the chat for a moment and I saw someone say Stu, and I know they're referring to the Stu Webb interview. That's a classic.
Oh yeah, from Veterans Today.
Yes, if you haven't seen Stu Webb, we actually had on twice. The first interview though is that's a classic YouTube one. So go check that. I think that's episode 43, and Stu Webb tells us the story of basically how he saw Lucifer, Satan. And basically, that's an interesting tale. You should really check that one out.
Yeah, that's cool. That's awesome. So there you have it, folks. He definitely has some good guests on the show, well-known names, definitely a wide variety of guests, which is really awesome. And I do see you guys probably going to be getting some bigger guests in the future because of your resume. By now, it's pretty built up. Doing the show 5 days a week, you've got a lot of good names on there. When other people see that, they're going to be feel more inclined to be a guest on your show. So, and it's like you said, too, your show has developed over time. It gets better all the time. So that's one thing that we got to strive for as broadcasters, is to try to figure out ways to make our shows better and stuff like that. So that's really awesome. How did you get involved with the Truth Broadcast Network? Was the rundown was around before you joined the Truth Broadcast Network?
No, basically, what I did was I discovered Harry in the We Are Change days. Basically, I was doing the We Are Change Milwaukee stuff, and I discovered Harry when I discovered a man named Dallas Goldbug. Okay, so let's shine some light on this a little bit. There's this guy out there that got a lot of publicity for saying people were other people, and they had the same ears and whatnot, and it was just completely bull crap. It was just bogus, and I was like, this is so stupid somebody has to have exposed this. Somebody had to have, said this is bull. You know what I mean? So here I go to YouTube because this is what I do, make sure that somebody has already covered it so I don't have to. And, here I find Hardcore Harry, and he's like, this guy is an idiot, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, Dallas Goldbug is such a fake. And I'm like, okay, I like this guy. So I started watching Harry's broadcast. Then I discovered the live broadcast. And this was pre-Truth broadcast days. This was back, probably in late 2011. And then Harry developed Truth broadcast last year. And we basically wanted to get me a show on the network too. And here we are now.
Yeah, well, you and Harry definitely have done a lot of work for the Truth Broadcast Network, and it is picking up, you know what I mean? And it can't get any worse, that's for sure. With the new broadcasters come on, our skills get better. It's just going to get better for sure.
I was going to say, I have a good Harry story as well, Hardcore Harry, who is, just a great friend. We actually got a chance to meet up at Bilderberg 2012, and I actually drove, a little extra south to meet Hardcore Harry in Ohio, as well as, a few other activists that road tripped with us. So it was cool to actually not only, see Harry's broadcast and stuff, but get to meet some of these guys in real life and, get to know that these people are real and, they stand for real things. And it's more than just like an avatar on a screen with like, everybody's a shill, you know what I mean? No, this guy's a real guy and he's got real issues and real bills and things. I'm not speaking about Harry. I'm just saying people in general, you know what I mean? It's the same thing when you come across all these activists, no matter what protest or event you're attending, whether it's I saw somebody mention Paul Fest in the thing or the NATO conference where I was accosted by the police for filming. I mean, it's just one thing after another, man.
Oh yeah, how was that? Like you were just filming and they actually arrested you, or?
Well, yeah, literally, yeah. I mean, we went to NATO 2012, the G8 summit, and basically we were filming the police state. I was looking for the police state. That's what I felt my job was, to observe and film. And apparently the police took offense to that. I mean, and I've dedicated, entire shows going back and showing the news clips where basically the news reported us literally as terrorists, saying we had AK-47s and all these things that were completely untrue. They said we were wearing what was it called? Military fatigues. And I have video where I'm just wearing regular clothes, like how I always do, shorts and a t-shirt. So, I mean, it shows you the lengths they go to smear you, and it just turns out to be completely false. And then once, the police find out, oh, he's part of a larger organization, not only did they, arrest me and try to, trump up terrorism charges, and I didn't even blink at him, I laughed at him. They also but they pulled over and searched Luke and Tim Pool and the other journalists that I was associated with there as well, because it was just a shakedown. I mean, it shows you the intimidation part of it. They knew we were there. They knew what we were doing. They knew we weren't causing trouble, but they knew that people were watching our information, which was on them. It was on their police tactics. It was on the police brutality. And that's the type of information that they want to suppress. They don't want people to see, the cops hitting upside the head, and they don't want to see, people illegally arrested. And
what you were there to cover is what actually happened.
Right. And by grabbing us up, it makes us unable to put that information out there.
Yeah, that's unreal. You know what I mean? I remember I was at marijuana rally in Toronto, and Dan Dix from Press for Truth was there, and the police rushed the park, and me and him were standing side by side. We weren't moving, you know what I mean? We're like, no, you're not getting us out of this park. And they tried to flood the park, and people were running like scared, you know what I mean? Running when the police came into the park to shake it down. But we stuck around, and he had his camera, and he was up right in the cops' faces, filming them and everything, you know what I mean? And that's what it takes, frontline journalism. it doesn't, like, I guarantee you the police in Toronto were a lot more friendly than your experience that you had, because we didn't get shaken down or arrested or anything like that. But in Canada, I think it's a little bit more lenient than what's going on in the United States. But at the same time, they still have the same kind of tactics. Like if you look at the G20 in Toronto, that was just insanity what happened there. Definitely on a large scale police state.
Right, they still use the same, globalist tactics to protect the great leaders,
Yeah, absolutely. So with all these guests that you've had on, and all the information and all the events you've uncovered and you've covered and reported on and stuff like that, what's your opinion on the current state of things in the world? Like, what do you think some of the most important fundamental things we need to attack or point our fingers at to try to expose?
That's a good question, because a lot of times I say this on our show that we're all over the place, because, I think there's a lot of people that are good at micromanaging certain topics, and then there's some people that are good at, broad awareness. And I think that's more my strong point. I can lead you to, a whole treasure trove of information, but it's not my job to decipher it. You know what I mean? I never felt as if it was my job to decipher information for people, if you understand what I mean.
Yeah.
It was always my job to provide the source. So, here's a link, or here's a story, or here's an object. You be the judge. You know what I mean? So I'm presenting you an opportunity to use your own critical thought. And I think a lot of people are afraid of that, because all of a sudden you're placing them in a box where they have to think, and they're not used to that. They're used to choices being made for them, and that's the way the current world works. Choices are made for you. You do things this way. The light is red, you stop. You know what I mean? You better not, do something like go through a red light, because why? That's wrong according to who? The red light fairy? You know what I mean? So, although you might cause chaos, can't you use discernment to say, there's no traffic here, I can simply proceed forward? You know what I mean? They think that if you don't follow these arbitrary laws, that there's going to be this anarchy and chaos, and people will just run all the red lights and smash into each other. And as we see in countries like Mexico and China, where there are no traffic lights, they do quite fine. Although they are leading the world in accidents, they get through every day.
Yeah, I think it's important to note that not all things in government are corrupt. Not all groups and platforms are essentially evil or rooting for a bad cause. You know what I mean? There is a lot of things that were designed over the years that serve really good, noble purposes. You know what I mean? There is a lot of good things that exist within this matrix, but what we do is we try to pick out the cancer, I guess you could say, and expose the rotten areas, and say, this is bad, this needs to change. You know what I mean? And it's important to keep on top of that as well, because it's so easy for it to just slip by us, and it's like you said, a lot of people do want to get all the information without looking into things themselves. So we do have to understand the bigger picture, and everybody's different. Everybody learns at a different pace. Everybody perceives information differently, or translates or deciphers, as the word you used, deciphers the information differently. So one thing I've noticed too, as a broadcaster and making documentary films and all that stuff, is you have to kind of be careful with your words, because if you do say something the wrong way, you could be misconstrued, and it could be a whole lot of harm for you later on. You know what I mean? If you say the wrong things and stuff like that, or so.
Right, it can be limiting. It's very hard, specifically when you do things like this where you're live on the air. You don't want to hold your tongue. You want to say what you mean, but I agree, you have to protect yourself from saying something that you may regret. And a lot of times, if you're saying something that you're going to regret, it must have not been thought out to begin with. And I'm not claiming that everything I say is genius, but I at least try to think about the things I'm saying, you know, as I speak. I'm not you know, Aristotle over here spitting prophecies and philosophy, but you know, I try to at least you know, put a good general perspective on things. Don't go too far one way or the other. Stay grounded to reality and judge things for what they really are, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one thing I like to do is point out the information and just question it. You know, just ask the questions. That's all. You don't have to provide the answers as a broadcaster. You really don't. Your job is to expose things, but also ask questions that your viewers either have or yourself have. And then by exposing the questions, hopefully the viewers and the people that are listening or the people that are supporting what you're doing can do some additional investigation of their own and come to their own conclusions. It's like William Cooper said, you know, don't believe anything I say. Do your own research and come to your own conclusions.
Right, and I think a lot of people these days, not everybody, but there's people out there that are like, oh, you know, you should be providing answers. Like, if you're putting yourself out there, you need to be providing answers. And, you know, I think those people have to realize that, you know, that's not my job. I'm not putting myself out there to provide answers. I never claim to do that. Now, some people, you know, might claim to have the answer to certain things, but, you know, I don't feel that's the route to go. You know, I'm not claiming to have answers. I'm sure you're not claiming to have the answers because I know I really don't. I know that I'm in a much safer position simply questioning, like you say. Yeah. You simply question things and it spurs debate. It spurs thought, whether rational or irrational, whether you think it's the reptilians or, you know, the Masons or the garbage men. You know what I mean? It could be legitimate or it could be lunacy, but at least you're using your potential. You're using your mind. You're thinking outside the box. And that's what the system that we are in right now, everything about it is designed to keep you thinking in a structured manner, in a structured fashion. And that's what guys like us are doing. We're breaking that. We're breaking that structured mechanism, and we're thinking outside the box. We're doing things differently. We're challenging authority. We're, you know, doing things that they hate. We're changing numbers on URLs. You know, we're creating websites that expose local police and politicians. And, you know, that used to take place back in old school journalism, but these days, you know, that's gone away. And even to the point of, if you expose the wrong people, they demonize people that actually committed fraud and stole trillions of dollars from, you know, the Federal Reserve and who knows what they did on 9/11, you know what I mean? But, you know, it's always, you know, blame the messenger, kill the whistleblower, and look the other way. The federal government and the globalists and the elite, they're just great philanthropists and they're helping humanity. Bill Gates, the eugenicist, he's a stand-up guy because he gives to charity, Mark, you know, so he's great, you know?
Yeah. Actually, I think my internet connection just got disconnected. So, again, second time today. So, I don't know if we're still streaming live. I don't think so. I'm going to stop it and reconnect.
I see you live, and we should be good, Mark. I think we're good.
Because I know sometimes...
Still on Skype.
Yeah, it seems like it disconnects and then connects again. Like, I don't have that problem too much anymore, but I used to at the beginning when I first started broadcasting.
Let me tell you a trick for Procaster. This is what we're great at: live tech support on the air. Trick for Procaster: you're always broadcasting as long as the timer's going. If the timer is froze, then you need to restart. But as long as the clock that you see, the red numbers, as long as that's moving, you're good, man. Yeah,
I've had a problem before where it did, like what you said, froze up, lost internet connection.
If you lose the clock, you're not putting out anything.
Yeah. So it seems like we're still live, folks. Good.
Right.
Coming
seems
from
like
our tech support guy himself, so...
And then we have the chatters that are our favorite. We always love the people in the chat. And for anybody that's listening, if you're listening like on TuneIn, self plug for the network here, come hang out in the chat, because that's where we get to interact. Me and Mark are hanging out here doing the live show, but yet here we are interacting with the listeners in the chat. They get to ask questions when we have guests on and things like that. I mean, that's a really cool thing.
Absolutely. And you do see regulars, you know what I mean? People that do come on all the time. They catch all the live broadcasts, which is really awesome to see that we do have followers for each of our shows and stuff like that. And right. The chat room,
and I always lurk in the darkness of the network.
Yeah. Well, I try to go on there as much as I can into the chat, but it is hard when you're broadcasting live to talk to the guest and make sure all your system's running perfectly and it's recording. But once you get the hang of things, it's pretty smooth. You know what I mean? So it's just like anything, you got to teach yourself. Experience gets you better at it, etc., etc. So for anybody out there, sorry for that technical difficulty, even though it was just a couple seconds apparently that it got disconnected. So hopefully that doesn't happen again, because it's never fun when that happens, for sure.
Trust me, we've been through that plenty of times as well. So, I mean, that's nothing new here. But, that's another thing. When we're just, regular guys, we're not going to have the best systems and connections and operating networks. So, I mean, we're just regular guys putting out, what we can. And, a lot of our production is almost equivalent to mainstream media. Or I'm not going to say it's better, but we're pretty much getting to the equivalent of a lot of these mainstream shows, whether it's graphically or even information.
Yeah, and those shows, they have a whole massive team of people working behind the scenes to get those shows to be produced and on the air and stuff. So it's crazy that we do this ourselves while we're broadcasting live, and then afterwards edit it and upload it and do all the work like that. But it's right. It goes to show that it can be done. You know what I mean? You don't need to receive a paycheck to do this. It doesn't cost you anything to become an internet activist, if you will. It costs nothing to do it. You just need to sharpen up your skills, learn how to do it, learn the tricks of the trade, and then you too could be off to a start. And you never know. Maybe you could have a show on the Truth Broadcast Network or another place, or maybe start a website and get your information out there. Because one thing I'm noticing, this is a new year, 2014. And a lot more people are getting involved and becoming involved with activism and learning the truth about things, and they're starting to really wake up on massive levels, I think. And one thing, we had a pretty interesting New Year's broadcast. It was the first time the network New Year's broadcast, we all got together and we're on for a while talking about different things about the new year and all that stuff. And I'll admit I got a little bit drunk that night. Had a lot of champagne, and
I didn't notice, man. I thought it was good.
Yeah, cool. Right on. I just remember it was a good show. It was good to have all the broadcasters on there talking about stuff, and it was interesting some of the things that we discussed for the new year for 2014. What we saw on the horizon.
Yeah, that was a really fun show, and I'm really sad that one was lost to the internet airwaves. You know what I mean? Basically, that will never be on YouTube or on MP3 form. We just totally lost it. Never showed up on my hard drive. Never made it to the live stream server. Those type of things happen. It just I think we were on for over 6 hours.
Yeah.
And there was tons and tons of great information. We had callers. It was just a fun night hanging out. For me, it's specifically on the air. I think that was the longest broadcast I've ever done, as a broadcaster. So I mean, going for like 6 hours, that's pretty
that's
intimidating.
A marathon.
You know what I mean? When you constantly have to be entertaining and talkative, and you constantly living up to this like superficial standard that people have for you. You constantly have to hit them with information and be on par, and it gets to be difficult. Although I understand that par, that standard doesn't exist. A lot of people that watch, they hold other broadcasters, more famous people, to standards that people don't really meet, because they're just regular guys as well. They just gained more notoriety than others.
Yeah, and it's strange how that works, you know what I mean? Because as a musician, I noticed that I was a DIY musician, you know what I mean? And that's how I kind of got into doing my own video production and imaging and all that stuff, just like yourself. And I noticed that the more hard I promoted myself and the bands I was in and all that kind of stuff, the harder it was to actually get out there, you know what I mean? It did do some work, but it's at the times when you just do it because you love it and you're not concerned about promoting and notoriety or anything like that. That's when it really is most important, I think. It's the evolution, it's also removing the ego, because at first you'll have a huge ego almost, you know what I mean? Like I'll admit, when I was playing music and stuff, I thought that we were the best band, and that's all I'd ever talk about was the band I was in and what we were doing and our accomplishments.
Yeah, but you were proud of it, Mark, and that's
Yeah.
okay. That's okay to be proud of something that you've worked on. I think a lot of people have shamed things like that. You put hard work into something, be proud of it, man. You worked hard on that, you know?
Yeah, but there's a difference between pride and an ego, though. Because I'll admit it was overboard. You know what I mean? Back in the day, like a few years ago,
You were like, your band sucks. Like, instead of just being like, yeah, I appreciate what I've done, you were like telling other people that they were crappy.
yeah, maybe not to their face, but you know what I mean. Afterwards,
Yeah,
a band would,
especially not to their face.
yeah,
Right.
maybe after the band would be done, we'd be in a hotel room saying, "Oh yeah, that band sucked" and this and that. You know what I mean? But then, I don't know. You know what I mean? There just came a realization point where I just felt like promoting was going too far, I think, and I just let it self-promote and stuff like that, and I found it naturally evolved, and it works better that way, because you're not straining yourself to promote it. You're just letting it out naturally, and those who come naturally. It's not forced, it's not pushed on them. I think that's really important, especially in what we're doing as well, is that you're doing it for the right reasons, and that you're not, like, I try not to promote it. You don't see me on my Facebook posting every 5 minutes about what I'm doing anymore. You know, I used to. If you look at my timeline, you could definitely see back in the day I was always posting, but now it's definitely minimalized itself, and I only post like once per show, and I don't overly promote it and stuff like that.
Yeah, but you can't let... Here's where I disagree with that strategy, Mark. You can't let, those superficial standards limit you. Who's the boss of the Facebook posting? Who's to say 2 Facebook posts is too much ego? You know what I mean?
Well, I'm not saying that.
Well, no, I'm not. Trust me, don't take this in the wrong way. I'm just saying, like, that's really something that, I think that's more limitation than anything else. Don't place any false limitations on yourself. And then, in fact, if you're promoting something that you believe in, who cares if people don't like it? Who cares if people think you posted too much? If it's real, you know what I mean? If it's something legitimate, it shouldn't matter. Now, obviously, there can be a spam issue. I agree with that. But, don't put yourself in a box. That's what I have a problem with. You don't want to put these limitations that don't exist on yourself, because society is all about false chains. I mean, we see that everywhere we look. People, political correctness. You can't say that. You can't say this. Can't do that. You can't stand here. Sign says this. Red light. You know what I mean? All these things. It's all false. It's all to keep you in that state where you're in the path that they've decided. So it's kind of like what I talked about earlier, thinking outside the box. Don't place limitations on arbitrary things like Facebook. If you're gonna make posts, you're gonna make posts. You know what I mean? It's like, if as long as it's not like selfies, like you're not gonna see me posting like a picture of myself in the mirror every 5 minutes. But yeah. I might post a flyer to the show and let people know where to find us. I think promoting something you believe in is perfectly acceptable.
Yeah.
And ego, on the other hand, is something that is easily identifiable, where you can see ego in a person and you're like, this person isn't legitimate. They're doing this to be famous, or they're doing this for money, or they're doing this, they don't even have legitimate things to say. And you can usually identify that. Not everyone, but specifically I think myself and other people who are more aware to just trends of individuals, I guess, because body language, things like that, these are all things that you can research.
Yeah. Well, one thing I noticed is back in the day when I was promoting music and posting on Facebook lots about it and stuff like that, and other websites as well, I was posting all the time, like quite consistently on all sorts of pages. I didn't really receive a lot of flack, but as soon as I started the World Public Union and doing activist stuff, and I was on Facebook quite a bit, posting all the time, like promoting everything on there, like quite often, that's when I started getting hit with hacks, and my accounts were taken down, posts weren't showing up, I had account problems, all sorts of anomalies like that started surfacing when I did it. That's why I was saying, like, now I only post minimal. It's not about ego or anything, but it's just to keep myself under the radar as much as possible, so they don't have any reasons to take me off
but
there, you know.
Don't you think, in a way, isn't that the way they've trained it? Isn't that the way that you've been now trained into, only doing this small amount of information, instead of, becoming more prominent on Facebook and, putting your information out there a lot more? Like I said, you become almost limited, whereas you could be putting out tons and tons and tons of information. You're only dropping a few links a day because of some arbitrary, standard that doesn't exist.
Yeah, so, I've kind of learned
that's something that's an illusion. I mean, it's something that not only this example, but people do this in life, is what I'm trying to stress. It's not just a Facebook thing. People do this in their jobs, in their families, with their girlfriends. These false chains. This is the best way I can describe it. They're false limitations where, if you really just look past that, you become determined, and those things that don't exist can't stop you.
Yeah, for sure, definitely. I guess you could say I've learned the limitations of Facebook sensory programming, I guess you could say, because I've noticed certain things you do will get you banned, you know what I mean? Or if you post the same link so many times. One thing I've noticed too on my personal page is if I post any links, if I'm updating my status on Facebook, let's just say, with tonight's show, if I included the link in the paragraph that I typed and then press enter, it would show up on my feed, but it would get like 1 or 2 likes. Whereas if I update my status and don't include a link to an external site, then the status gets like 50 likes or 60 likes.
And this is purely because of Facebook's algorithms and censorship. They have changed the way Facebook works, which I've personally learned from Hardcore Harry that, although you can get a lot done on Facebook, Facebook now is worse than it ever has been. Yeah. Used to be able to reach thousands and thousands of people. We were reaching hundreds of thousands on Facebook. Now it's limited to thousands at the most because they want you to pay. They want you to pay to drop a link. They want you to pay for people that already like your page. That's the thing. People that already liked your pages and already became your friends are being censored from seeing your information because you have to pay to reach your entire friends list. And that's ridiculous. That shows you that it's not legitimate. And that shows you that you have to move off of Facebook if you want your information to reach anywhere. If you want your information in a search engine, you have to get off of Facebook. You know what I mean? If you're writing articles, if you have a radio broadcast, you have to get off of any system that will keep you in a box. And that includes Blog Talk Radio, Facebook, all these things, even Planet InfoWars. Why be contained to a social network? Start your own website. You can do it. There's sites like Wix, WordPress, all these things. Even like you're an old school HTML guy. You could start a website and nobody except for the government can take it down. Yeah. You know what I mean? And
that's what I've learned. Yeah. I've learned to transition off of Facebook when doing activism stuff, almost like I post minimal on there to make sure people that are in my friends list can see it if they can. But it's like you're saying, the algorithms are now picking up all this stuff on Facebook, YouTube, you name it, and it's suppressing the views and the outreach of certain materials.
YouTube as well. YouTube's a major culprit. Views are majorly down, not being counted. How can you release a video and have 1,000 views and another video have 20 views? It doesn't make any sense when you have the same people watching the videos. Clearly things aren't being counted, and this is the way it's going to work when you're trusting a Leviathan system in Google Inc. and Facebook. And do these guys really have our best interests at stake? I don't know if they do. You know what I mean? As we see time and time again that they don't. In fact, we see them, purchasing Boston Dynamics and robots and things like
DARPA.
I don't know if this is going to help us. You know what I mean? I think this is more of, protecting their core. You notice how in the San Francisco area, Google has, these fancy limo-like buses that pick up their employees that are gaining a lot of flack right now, and they have like Wi-Fi internet and flat screen TVs and all this stuff. So all like the surf class people have to see the Google bus pull up, and like all the techies get on there, and on their nice bus, and then like the surf class gets on like the city bus, and it's all like spitting out exhaust, and that's the society we live in. If you're not in the club, man, you're pretty much screwed at this point. And that's another thing that we talk about a lot. I'm sure you do as well, as the police, because they feel that they're in that club. And they're really not. They're just, the muscle right now. But they'll be turned on as well.
Yeah, for sure. I'm noticing a lot more police waking up to this kind of information and agreeing with people like us of what we're covering, for sure. More so than before. Because it's like you said, they're working a job, but there is a lot of them that there's even an order of police, a fraternal order of police that exists.
Very Masonic as well.
Yeah, of course. And a lot of police are linked with Masonry and stuff like that, as well as other occupations that are fundamental to the community. A lot of these people you'll find them in the Mason halls and stuff like that. So in a way, we're just exposing secret clubs and trying to find out the information, because when people suppress information and hide things from you, we're naturally curious to figure out what it is, right? So that's what makes it so appealing to us, and to try to uncover stuff.
And that's counterculture. But see, the difference between their counterculture and our counterculture is we're out in the open. Yeah. We're on the internet where anybody can find Mike Paczesny and Mark Howitt, find out what I believe, what I think, and what I do. You know what I mean? I'm not a Freemason. I'm not secretive. I'm not in a box practicing magic and, saying satanic rituals. That's not what I'm doing, and you could easily see that. But yet, here's this other part of the community that has a large group, that's, hiding behind closed doors. There has to be something opposed to that. There has to be something more open, and I think that's what guys like us are doing. We're just providing people a gateway into seeing what else is out there. Not even providing the organization per se. We're just showing you like, hey, there might be a group of people out there that associate to your beliefs, whatever they may be. Because like we said, we're all over the place, whether it's aliens and Nephilim to Federal Reserve and literally every topic that is conspiracy, government, military, industrial complex related. Yeah,
I agree totally. And I think that's one thing too that's important when you're getting involved in this stuff, is to think outside the box, really, and not limit yourself to one topic or subject, because a lot of this stuff relates. It's a giant puzzle, and the pieces do fit together, and which is why it's kind of good to cover so many different topics. And I've said this before, and I'll have to say it right here again. I don't know everything, you know what I mean? I don't claim to know everything. I just know a little bit about a lot of things, really, is what I do.
Right.
That's kind of like what we're doing here, is we're trying to figure out this stuff out ourselves, just like all the listeners out there. So we're trying to look for questions that might be important to ask, things that the media might have missed, etc., while we're trying to uncover the truth about a lot of things. What do you think, in your opinion, what's the weirdest guest you've ever had, or weirdest topic that you've covered on your show?
Like I mentioned the Stu Webb earlier. That was pretty strange. Like I said, I think that was episode 43, if you want to check that out, where basically he explains that Baphomet visited him in his room, and he goes into detail and he describes the goat-headed demon and how he flew up and hit his head on the roof. And I thought I was on Coast to Coast for a minute, but I just kind of let it go. And it's one of those things that's live radio, and I'm not going to tell the man he's a liar, you know what I mean? But he said what he said, and if you guys want to check it out, that's an excellent story.
I guess it caught you off guard.
Right. And, Kristan even, he called them, he's like, what if people just called you batshit crazy? And Stu Webb, just kind of looked at us and said, I'm not. And, what are you going to say to somebody like that? You're not going to argue with them. You're going to be like, okay, well, moving on.
Yeah,
at least me
sure.
anyway. That's why I'm in the position. You know what I mean? I'm like, so, and the next story is, but as far as anything else weird, we've had just fun. We've had lots and lots of fun. Guys like Tom Woods coming on the show talking economics, but yet when he's on the show, he's like in his backyard and there's like a snake on his porch and he's like freaking out and like showing us his backyard. And Tony Bones, an activist from the Kansas City area, copblock.org, she was on the show, and one of her kids ran through the background and fell on the pavement, and we were running out of time. We were like in the last 2 minutes of the show, and she ran off. So literally all we could see was her running on Skype and the kid in the background, and me and Kristan are like, well, there goes Tony Bones. We didn't get to finish the interview, and then we just kind of wrap it up, So there's been, just a lot of fun times.
That's the joys of life, right? You never know what's going to happen.
But all the time covering real issues, but having a good time on the way.
Definitely. Vinny Eastwood, I know you've interviewed him in the past.
Awesome
that
guy
guy's
too.
He's funny. He's a hilarious guy.
He is a comedian, and he had us laughing almost the whole time.
Yeah.
He's just a funny guy, right?
Yeah, so if you're watching, Vinny, you're a hilarious guy. Keep up the good work. You're putting a lighter side to this activism stuff.
Right. Which is, that's what we try to be. We wish we could be as funny as Vinny.
Yeah, he's a top class act, I guess you could say. I was trying to remember the name of this guy. I can't remember it off the top of my head, but he apparently knows, because you interviewed Tila Tequila, I believe.
Me? I never interviewed Tila.
Oh no? Okay, then it must have been somebody else that I see.
We almost did. We almost talked to Tila, but no.
Okay, because I was watching this guy's story. I think it's a story. I believe he's from Canada. He's a younger guy, and he's talking about these stations and stuff like that. Tila Tequila's involved, and it's like another dimension, and there's like different weird creatures and beings and stuff. I was listening to this guy talk, and it's the most absurd stuff I have ever heard in my life. I know Vinny Eastwood interviewed him on his show once, and it was a crazy show. I wish I knew the name. If anybody in the chat room can remember the name of this guy, it might be Mark something. But he was on a couple shows, and he's talking about these space. They're almost like space stations on Earth and stuff, and you can't see them. They exist in another dimension, and he's going on about these creatures or entities that exist, and all the elites are plugged into this stuff, and only the elites are there. He said he was sitting at this, it was like a big arena, and all these celebrities were in the crowd. Even the Queen Elizabeth was there. She's the one who organizes these big meetings, and they kill people. Like, they have clones. That's what it was. He was he was talking about how they clone people. And they clone them, and they have them as sex slaves and all this other stuff. And they have these rituals. It
sounds a tad bit ridiculous. I'm not sure about any of this, but I have heard about the recharge zones where people can go to like recharge energy or whatever. But yeah, I haven't heard anything about any of this, man.
I'm gonna send you a link after when I find out his name. But this was an insane story, and I've been trying to get this guy on the show. Like, I'm gonna try to get him on the show, and I'm not doing it to corner him, you know what I mean, and say you're ridiculous. But this story was totally out of this world. I could not believe what I was hearing about cloning people, and then they had fights and battles where everybody was watching, all these celebrities, and he said some rap stars were killed because of it, because they exposed this. But they battling.
Always got the rap stars involved, people love them.
There it is. David Richardson, just named him right on. Donald Marshall, that's who it is. Donald Marshall, that's the guy's name. Anybody listening, check out this guy's story, Donald Marshall. It is insane stuff. I was like blown out of this world when I heard about Donald Marshall.
I'm gonna have to look into him.
Talking about cloning clones, and then they bring these clones into the arena, and they fight and they battle, they decapitate each other, and everybody's watching, and it's a form of entertainment that's put on by the Queen, and all the elites and rich are there, and It's pretty intense and in detailed stuff, and he seems to go
Sounds
off.
like a movie script to me. I mean, I'm not saying it's not real. I mean, and I at this point, I don't doubt anything. But this just my general opinion on it right now, based on no fact at all. It sounds far fetched, and that's coming from a conspiracy perspective. So I'll have to do more research.
That's why I wanted to get him on the show, because I have some real fundamental questions to ask him about this, because I understand about cloning. What's that?
I said, are you a liar?
Yeah, but I totally believe in the human cloning thing. A lot of people out there might think it's absurd. Yeah, exactly. So I totally believe in that, but there's just some elements of the story that are just
placing them in battle, Mark. I mean,
that's
what are they giving them little swords and shields and saying, "Fight, Junior Will Smith against Nicki Minaj, and fight till the battle of death, and whoever cuts off the head will survive as the clone champion."
Yeah.
I can see people watching that. People watch ridiculous shit on TV, so I can see them watching it in an arena, but just the whole premise of it is, I'd rather believe that they were doing black magic in dark closets. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh yeah. But yeah, I was just asking if you knew about him, because that's definitely probably the most insane thing I've ever heard in my life. And I figured by now you would have heard about that story, or Donald Marshall talking about that stuff.
No.
But definitely some crazy stuff. Check it out, Mike. I'm telling you, you're gonna laugh and you're gonna think that, but it's crazy. This story, he talks about it like it's normal, it's like he knows everything about it. It's just natural. He just goes forward with so much information about it, which is pretty interesting. You know what I mean? But definitely sounds absurd of a story. And
right, it's like one of those things. How can I judge it until I hear the story? You know what I mean? I'm just initially going off what you're telling me, and lots of things sound absurd, World Trade Center 7 fell down at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. It was never hit by an airplane, and that sounds absurd, that a building fell for no reason at all, and no buildings ever fell from fire before 9/11. So I mean, look at that. That sounds absurd, but they got away with that. So why couldn't people be having satanic clone wars? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Have you ever had any guests about that you've discussed ritual abuse, or child pedophile rings or anything like that? Because that's something that I've been really looking for more information on, and it's kind of hard to find, but there is a lot of evidence supporting that.
You gotta watch Steve's show. You gotta watch Cancel Cabal with Steven Roberts, man. He's talking about pedophile rings and child sex abuse every day. It's not something that is in our repertoire. It's not necessarily one of our strongest standpoints. Although it's something that happens, we don't really focus on those kind of stories, because a lot of people are really just effed up in the mind. So whether or not they were abused satanically for worship and stuff, I'd rather allow other people to go in depth into those stories. It's not for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I know that these groups exist. Definitely from what I've been able to uncover, there is groups that exist, and it is kind of a controversial subject, but I wouldn't even mind doing an episode on that to try to expose that stuff and give people examples and information on where to look, kind of point them in the right direction for anybody who's trying to find out information about that. And that's one thing as a broadcaster I've noticed, is you really got to plan out what you want to talk about and the guests you have, especially if you're doing a broadcast without guests. You're doing it all just kind of like what Harry Link does. That's why I love Harry's show, Death to the New World Order, because he doesn't always have guests on. Most of the time it's just him sitting there digging for the truth, digging through these websites and taking calls and calling other people and stuff. And that's before I became a broadcaster, I was watching your show and Harry's show, and I kind of tried to do a thing in between the two of them, do that sometimes, and as well as have guests on and stuff like that, just to be different. But you and Harry both, I have to admit, you guys definitely influenced me and taught me everything I know about this broadcasting stuff. And I definitely got a lot of ideas from you guys, and essentially you guys trained me to become what I am today. Not trained, but
well, we helped.
Showed me the way, yeah. Yeah,
We
definitely.
try. And not just you, Mark. Anybody that wants to be a broadcaster, if you want to dedicate yourself, because that's what it takes. It takes dedication. We're not gonna set up your webcam and your computer for you. So you have to do all those things. You have to come to us like, hey, I'm ready to go, and then we'll get you set up. We'll put you on the platform. We'll give you the audience, and then it's up to you. And there's a platform here if you want to get involved. And obviously, you see Mark and others. We're getting new broadcasters almost on a regular basis now, where we have 3-4 live shows a night, plus on the weekends. So I mean, we're really making some progress here.
What's in the future for the Truth Broadcast Network? I know we discussed a little bit about this on the New Year's broadcast, but for anybody who missed that show, and obviously nobody can see that show now, can you explain to the viewers what's in the future for the Truth Broadcast Network?
Well, I would assure you that it's only going to get better. You know what I mean? If you've enjoyed the shows so far with Harry, myself, Steve, Spike, you, and everybody else, the Average Liberator, Corey Washington, newer broadcaster, it's only going to get better. We're just going to get more and more activists. Even you might start to see more well-known names coming over to our side, because people are starting to realize that we have to work together. And a lot of people think, oh, I can do it on my own. I don't need anybody else. I can do it on my own. They want like this spotlight on them type of thing. Well, why not come over where a bunch of activists are working together and just, share and help out? The audiences transfer show to show. So, the people that are hanging out in the chat watching the Rundown Live, the whole chat room moves over to Death to the New World Order. So, I mean, it's a good way for people that would have never saw the Rundown Live or Unveiling the Truth to, see new material. So when you're a new activist and you want to be a broadcaster on Truth Broadcast, you get on our network and people are going to see your show that aren't necessarily on your Facebook. You may not know them in real life. These are people that are all around the world. This is an international thing. This is truly beyond radio, because Truth Broadcast is worldwide. We have no limitations with the internet. We're using it the way it's supposed to be used, to reach the world with no filter.
Yeah. And they are trying to suppress it, and they will try in the future, I'm sure of that, especially as we progress and we get more broadcasters on. You mentioned Corey Washington. He's one of the newer broadcasters on with the show The Average Liberator. He's got a great show. He's trying his best he can to get information out there, and he uncovers it really well. He's very precise about his information. He's very smart and well-spoken, and it's good to have other broadcasters joining aboard. And one thing that Harry Link mentioned in the interview that I did with him, which he announced on the show for the first time, was that he's planning to expand the Truth Broadcast Network into channels, so that you could choose and select different channels and get different activists and broadcasters on each one, but it's all connected to the Truth Broadcast Network. So that's another thing that's in the future for Truth Broadcast
Network.
Network.
I think that's just a natural progression for any network that has a lot of information, more and more options. That's just another bonus of hanging out with us.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, anybody out there who's interested in this, you definitely get help from us, and we definitely are trying to get more broadcasters and get this information out there for people to check out, for sure.
And it's just a good community. I want to mention too that it's not just like the broadcasters. We hang out with everybody in the chat, on Facebook. It's more than just like a show. You know what I mean? We're not like rock stars where we do the show and then we walk off stage and you don't see us till we come to town again. No, it's like we're here every day. We're in the chat. You can message us on Facebook. That's how you know it's legitimate.
For sure. And it doesn't take a lot if you're just doing once a week and stuff like that. Like myself, it does take a bit to edit it and get the videos uploaded and stuff, but it is just one day a week, so I dedicate what I can. I mean, I've got a family and 2 kids and all that stuff, so it's pretty hard for me to keep on top of it all the time. You know what I mean? I wouldn't be able to do Monday to Friday like you do. That's
right. I don't have
a lot
the
of work.
family though. See, I sacrificed women and children for liberty.
Well, hey.
See, and I was able to make that choice though, whereas some people didn't make that choice till later down the road. So that's perfectly understandable. Doesn't mean you can't do what you're doing now, which is awesome.
Yeah, for sure. And one thing I wanted to do as well is I wanted to show everybody the Rundown Live website and Big P Zone for anybody out there who's watching. I'm gonna get that on the screen here.
We have a website? What?
So here's the Rundown Live. Here's the website. I'm just gonna do a scan through of this, and I'll get this on screen for everybody so they can check it out. But here we have it, the Rundown Live. And they're always posting articles in the news section. So anybody who's looking for news to read, check this out. They're always posting really great articles on the website, as well as podcasts. You could pretty much listen to the Rundown Live all the time. I think if you just click the player on this page, you could definitely check it out. Or they're linked in with the Truth Broadcast Network live streaming up here, as you could see. Same setup as Unveiling the Truth website, where you can check out the other shows on the network and catch them live 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, Monday to Friday. And that's when you're going to catch the Rundown Live. They also have downloads on here. They have link section, contact, and all that stuff. So, and also one thing on their page is there's a lot of links, as you could see on the panels. There's a lot of links that'll get you to other sites and their Facebook page, and as well as old broadcasts and stuff like that. So definitely an awesome site that you have here. And again, this is all self-run, independently administered by Mike and Kristan. So this is a really great website here. And the Big P Zone, as Mike mentioned, is essentially like a mirror to the Rundown Live, but there is other links and articles. But it's pretty much got all the same information. So anybody out there who wants to check out more information, check out the rundownlive.com or bigpzone.com, and you'll definitely get all the information there. So I wanted to show everybody that, just so they could get a glimpse of that website. And I'm just going to get you back on screen here, Mike. There we go.
Yeah, it's been a lot of work, man. I put a lot of blood and sweat into that website, even though it's just on WordPress. It's a lot of hours after 12 a.m. You know what I mean? 12 to 4 a.m. up all night, testing codes and widgets and images not working and pixels and scripts not working, and that's just part of the process, man. You don't think when you sign up to be an activist that you're gonna also have to learn how to edit videos and write scripts and all these things. But if you want to be successful, you have to be well-rounded, man. Mm-hmm. And you have to dab in everything.
Yeah, like I'm trying to fix the RSS feed on the Unveiling the Truth website. RSS is
huge. It's a huge, again, attributed to Aaron Swartz. Aaron Swartz literally invented RSS. A huge part of truthbroadcastnetwork.com, the Rundown Live, and a new site that I just started for the beginning of the year, conspiracywire.com, where basically it is purely ran by RSS feed. It's all automatic, it's all automated, and it's just tons of good information coming through on a website through RSS. So, I mean, that's a huge thing.
That's awesome, for sure. Like, I knew that RSS was important for websites, which is why I put it on the website on Unveiling the Truth, but I'm still learning how to work it. I'm not sure how to connect everything to it so that it automatically posts, because that's, I think, essentially what RSS is it automatically posts updates and other things from whatever websites that you plug it into that has the RSS feature. So that's awesome that you made that website where it's just a website that automatically refreshes itself. It's little work for you, and there's tons of info on there.
Right. All I do is set up the sources of the information, and it does all the work. And see, not everybody can just sit down and do something like that. Although, I'm not saying that it was very difficult. It takes a little bit of ingenious know-it-all ability. You know what I mean? You got to kind of look through tutorial videos and look for these guys that have already gone to school for this stuff, and then you're like, thanks guy for making a YouTube video, and then you go fix your site.
Absolutely. And there's nothing wrong with free education and learning to do things. Like you said earlier, it doesn't cost anything to do this stuff. Once you learn it, those are skills. That's ammo in your gun, I guess. It's ammo in the clip, I guess you could say, and you're good to go once you have that knowledge and you're prepared,
So it just shows you, though, it comes full circle. Those guys that are making like the tech videos and stuff, they never, intended on being activists or anything, explaining how to set up cameras and TVs. But yet here I am using their information to benefit activism. Yeah. So you see how putting things in comes full circle. You work to put positivity in, and it returns itself in ways that you never imagined.
Yeah, what goes around
Signed,
comes around.
Mike Paczesny.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it, though.
It was a joke, guys. Jeez.
Well, all I know is that you did teach me a lot when it came to this stuff, you know what I mean? Because I was already doing my own independent videos and imaging and all that kind of stuff and web stuff, but when I met you, it was like there's all this stuff that I didn't even know about that existed, like the Vegas templates and all these other things that I didn't know about. You're showing me this stuff, and I'm learning as I go along.
Streamlines. It makes a lot of things easier instead of thinking you have to build everything from the ground up. A lot of things are already set up for you to do much, much easier. The work's already been laid out. Use some of this stuff that people have put out there to your benefit. Whether we read a lot about conspiracies and the control mechanism, finances, things like that. But why not educate yourself on practical things, engine building, carpentry, things like this. So many forms of knowledge that are taken for granted. Whether you're an electrician, all these things that, people just don't care about. But yet, if you just know, even if it's just a little bit, you never know what you could do with that information. It may come into play later down the line.
Yeah, and there's educational institutions out there that are going to charge you, thousands and thousands of dollars to learn about this stuff, when essentially that's all it is you're learning about stuff. And really, it doesn't cost anything to learn. Especially with the advantages of the internet nowadays, with all this, the access to all this free information, you could pretty much teach yourself what a university degree will give you online in your own free time as an independent researcher, and it won't cost you a dime.
And much, much further beyond, even things that you would never learn in university, whether it's religious philosophy or ancient history that would never be in a college text. You know what I mean? If you're talking like Sumerians and Anunnaki and things that are like frowned upon in legitimate historical circles. So that's what the internet brings you. And the problem with that is you just have to decipher what's legitimate and what's not, and that's why some people are better than others at that.
Yeah, and one thing I've noticed too is if you're citing sources from the internet, or if you're getting your information from the internet, one thing that these disinformationalists will do is discredit you for using the internet as a source of your information, when really that's the best source for any information. Most information is contained on the internet somewhere. You'll find a legitimate, valid source of information on the internet, whether it comes from a book that's produced through a university library or whether it's coming from the internet. It's essentially the same information. And a lot of people, once people say, oh, you got that from the internet, or you heard that from the internet, like it's a derogatory term, right? And that's part of that disinformation campaign out there.
Well, yeah, it's like, what's the difference between saying, oh, you heard that on the internet, or you read that at the library? Because technically, isn't that really the same thing? Oh, you could read just about anything in a book now that will be mirrored online. You know what I mean? Whether it's dictionaries to, Huck Finn, it's all there. So, I mean, literally, it's all on the internet. Even information that you don't think about you is on the internet, it is. Trust me on that.
Yeah, guaranteed. There's a lot of stuff on the internet, and that's the beauty of it. I'm not sure if you've ever watched this documentary. I can't remember the name of it, but it involves
Nope, never saw it.
it involves the guys who made Pirate Bay, and they got charged and stuff like that. They're from Europe, and they got charged.
Right.
They came in and got their system confiscated. But I watched this documentary about torrents and how they're explaining how that's the history, or that's the future of information. Definitely.
Torrents are huge, right? I failed to mention this part, but you guys may have picked this up. That like I'm a huge tech guy, so as I was growing up, I was always on the hacker side. When I was young, I'm talking like 12, 13, 14, I was hacking computers, getting into girlfriends' pictures and all this stuff, sending all my buddies viruses. Trust me, I don't do it now. But I used to, because, that's what you do. But then they've turned those things into terrorism post 9/11. So, you kind of back off. And a lot of people are still pushing it. But basically, tech has been one of those things that, always meant a lot to me. And I honestly, I forgot where I was going with that. But tech is awesome.
Yeah, definitely. We were talking about the torrents, though, and the guys who started Pirate Bay.
The torrents. That's right. I was going to tell you that back when I was starting, torrents didn't exist, so a lot of file transferring was peer-to-peer. And then obviously they had the crackdown with Napster, because that was like the first initial popular peer-to-peer transfer. Even though people were using peer-to-peer transfer through chat clients and things like Yahoo Messenger, IRC,
MSN,
it really wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't popular to transfer files that way. Then Napster came out, a place that kind of linked everybody up. It was literally the original torrent base, the way it's similarly set up now. They removed a little bit of the link to the users. There's a little more loopholes now where it doesn't link directly back to you. The entire portion of information, you only have pieces of it. But anyway, there's these files called XDCC files, and on IRC, there's probably very few people that know about this, but to get files, people used to have to go on private IRC servers and like message bots to download music and all these files, and then like somebody's bot who was just a guy like me would like send you the file you requested, and that was just the way you did stuff
I remember that
online, right?
I totally remember that.
Right, and see, it got to be a point that people were logging on these private IRC servers, and then that makes you an easy target. If you're the host of the IRC server, well, of course the government's just going to come after you, so, that kills everything when you shut down the server. So it leads you towards torrents, which have been around, since then, just wasn't as popular, and now, like, everybody torrents. I mean, that's, if you're not using BitTorrent or BitLord or torrenting to get your files, you should be, because I don't want to self-incriminate myself, but literally I haven't paid for software ever. So you know what I mean? Like, that's you guys got to get with the program, man. Don't make these guys any more rich than they have to be. You can get information for free. It's called the internet. Look it up.
Yeah, for sure. Everything I've got too was for free. And I remember you're talking about MIRC or IRC. You'd go into a chat room. Let's just say I was looking for a heavy metal album in MP3s. You just type in metal MP3. You do a search for rooms, and then you'd go into this chat room, and there'd be a whole bunch of people in there. Some of them were bots who automatically had files, and then you'd trigger those users by typing in a certain code, and then boom, it would show up with all the song names, and then you just download that manually to your computer. And that's awesome that you brought that up, because that was a long time ago. Much more advanced,
though, right? Much more advanced, and that shows you. I was doing that when I was 12, 13 years old, so that shows you, how they've limited potential. They force you out of that, where you're putting in all this work to transfer files, and now all of a sudden they place you in a box where you have to use iTunes and pay 99 cents for a file. They try to limit you as much as possible. So obviously that's why they're going after the Pirate Bay guys, because they're still providing the open source information to the world, which that will never go away. With guys like us out there, open source information will always be there. It'll never go away. Phone lines, telegraph, USB, there's so many ways, will never be silenced.
Absolutely. And that's a great documentary to check out for all you techies out there, or anybody who's wants to learn more information about this. I saw it on topdocumentaryfilms.com, which is a pretty well-known website with lots of documentaries on there. If you type in Pirate Bay, I believe that it'll show up in the search engine, and definitely check out that documentary, because it even talks about Aaron Swartz. It talks about a lot of people in there that hackers, and just the history of information transfer, and how intellectual property rights are becoming a highly profitable industry. These people are making lots of money off trying to sue people for intellectual property rights. Hollywood is claiming that they've lost so much money to pirating. You're seeing more and more FBI warnings. You're seeing intellectual property rights organizations now at the beginning of your movies you're watching. There's all this stuff happening because they are really trying to attack that. They don't want us spreading this information and getting this information out there. That's another
They don't want you doing
why.
anything. They don't want you using your brain. They don't want you thinking outside the box. They don't want you to be creative. They don't want you to be innovative. They don't want you to be a human. They don't want you to be a human being. They want you to be a drone. So what are you going to do? Are you going to stand up for yourself, or are you just going to keep sitting around and doing nothing? There comes a point where you have to stand up and do something. Obviously, I've reached that point. Mark's reached that point. Most of the people here listening have reached that point.
Yeah.
But if you haven't, you have to seriously take a look at yourself and your surroundings and be like, what the F am I doing? I have to start making changes right now. I have to start making changes to the way I interact with people. I have to start making changes to the way I allow people to interact with me. You know what I mean? There's a lot of people that will judge you and look down upon you. Don't allow them to do that. If you're disrespected, let those people know that they have no moral high ground or authority over you. I don't care if they're your boss or your brother or anyone. You are a human being, and you deserve to be treated as an equal human being no matter what. You know what I mean? Unless you're being attacked, or something like that. Everybody deserves respect. And I think that's something that's lacking, and that's part of the culture that's declining, and that's why we see a society collapsing, because things like respect and moral fabric have gone away, and we have to let people know that these things are still good. These are still respectable qualities when you treat people well and respect others and do good things, that these behaviors will be rewarded with success, and not just success, but good feeling and productivity. The people that are good guys a lot of time get shitted on, and that's the way it is. You're a good guy, you get the shaft, man.
Yeah,
you're
nice
not
guys finish
selling
last.
out. Right,
That's the
and
term.
we got to change that. We got to change it. Truth and respect, and just true humanity, light, good things, good people. That's the way to be.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely dead on about all that stuff, for sure. And we are actually running short on time. We do have a couple minutes left, and it definitely, what you said there rang true. I think those were amazing words, even for parting words, what you just said. But if there's anything else that you'd like to let our viewers know, or any last words, plug some links or anything like that, that'd be great.
I love to talk, Mark. That's what I do. That's become my job, I guess. I just love to talk. So obviously, I really appreciate you for having me on the show and giving me the ability to just, rant and ask me some questions. It's been fun, obviously. I like to just, sit back and tell some of the stories about, activism in life, because I think there's a lot people can learn from that part of it as well. Although on the rundown, it's become about the guests and the news. We're trying to bring back a little more of the personability as well, to make, people still feel like, we're right there hanging out with you in the room, because we are your friends. We are, we're there together, and we really want you to feel a part of it. And that's why we do this. We do it for you guys, not only to get the information out, but to put a stop to the corruption and all these sick things that are going on in the world, whether it's war, the police state, poisoning of the food and the air, so much more. I mean, we could go on for, Mark, we could do another 6 hours, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if I had to just leave people with anything, I want to obviously have them check out the website, therundownlive.com. You can go to Big P Zone if you want, but the Rundown Live is the main site that I want you to check out. And if you want to go check out conspiracywire.com, there's going to be lots of good information coming out on there 24/7. So if you want to see the top news, F CNN, guys, go over to Conspiracy Wire, because you know what? We're taking over. We are the media now. And I guess that's about all I got, Mark.
We are the media. Definitely some wise words, and those ring true as well. We are the media, and I think a lot more people, especially this year, are turning to people like us for information, to get information on news and updates and what's really going on in the world, because once you know the truth, there's no turning back. Absolutely not. How could you deny the truth? How could you turn back on something that shapes the world and that's really going on? And once you peel back that layer and you see what's underneath, there's no going back. Absolutely not. You can't be tricked anymore. So anybody out there listening, it's time to search for the truth and to peel back the blindfold. If you're doubting anything we've been talking about, check out the Rundown Live, check out their guests, check out the information and the news they're posting on the website, and you will find the truth in there. You'll find tons of information, or at least it'll point you in the right direction on where to find it. And Conspiracy Wire is an awesome idea. I gotta say, I wasn't actually aware of that website until today's broadcast, so thanks for pointing that out. I'm definitely gonna put that on my bookmarks.
Brand new, man.
Awesome. So that's conspiracywire.com?
Right.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, I want to thank you again, Mike, for joining me today on the show. And for all you viewers out there listening, and for everybody who subscribed on the YouTube channel, Unveiling the Truth on YouTube, or check out unveilingthetruth.com. Give this broadcast a like, give the page a like, share it with your friends, as well as the Rundown Live and the Truth Broadcast Network. And for anybody who's not aware of the Truth Broadcast, there's a schedule, there's a calendar out which lists the times that the shows are going on. Now, Unveiling the Truth is only live Saturday nights at 10 o'clock, but the Rundown is live at 9 p.m. Eastern, Monday to Friday. So you can tune in live, but in the meantime, when there's nothing live, it's playing repeats of older shows. So there's always something playing on the Truth Broadcast Network. So no matter what website you tune into, whether it be the Rundown Live or Unveiling the Truth or Truth Broadcast Network, you're always going to have a constant flow of information and broadcasters on there. So it's viewers like you that keep us going. So thank you guys for tuning in, and thanks to everybody for watching. I'm your host, Mark Howitt, and today's date, January 11th, 2014. Thank you for joining me, and thank you, Mike, as well, for joining me. I think it was a great show.
Thanks a lot, everybody, for listening as well.
Right on. Peace.
Ladies and gentlemen, the last president of the United States of America.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweighed the dangers which are cited to justify it. For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day.
Everything we want to sit and write's in our midst, but we don't really give a fuck, that's the twist. Once you fall into the trap, it's a bit. Somebody took a bullet for your right to exist. When they slide that by you, they give you a rifle for your G.I. Joe. Hold on to your Bible, it's about survival. That is what it's read my flow. Everything is gonna be my way. See, I do not play with the CIA. In the dirt is where they must lay. You see, them motherfuckers murdered JFK. But that was also an outside job, just like 9/11 done by the Mossad. No doubt about it. Anybody who had a voice, Martin, Robert, Malcolm, name your choice. I'm on some wild shit this year. You bet your gums I'm in here. It ain't no fun to this year. I ain't the one to miss here. I'm on some wild shit this year. You bet your gums I'm in here. It ain't no fun to this year. I ain't the one to miss it. They've infiltrated your patriot radio stations. Fee collectors are busy gathering information. This is no way to conduct a patriot meeting. Council for National Policy is where they're eating. Yummy. AJ gets no respect. Pretty soon he will host the show with Glenn Beck. How much rat poison is in the tuna fish? When will they turn him into a lunatic? These are questions that I ask myself as I sit back and ponder how vast the wealth that dies from gas at last should pass the help. If you think that I'm lying, you should blast yourself. Ted Pike is a friend of mine. Mr. Jones booked him and then declined because he did not want to debate the fact that Israel is a rabbit little state. They call me anti-Semitic, picture that. If that's true, I'm a Nigerian diplomat. The same old guest, he brings on the chit and chat. They sound like pussy, I got a verbal dick for that. Mr. Jones, let me get this right. Jack Blood got bitched out by your wife cause he wasn't pushing your material right. I trust Jack Blood with my motherfucking life. Yeah.
My balls are all out this year. It ain't no fun to this year. If you don't trust in this here, you might as well slit your wrist here. My balls are all out this year. Believe I weighed the risk here. When patriots get rich here, you may be on the list here.
That I do not intend to permit to the extent that it's in my control. And no official of my administration, whether his rank is high or low, civilian or military, should interpret my words here tonight as an excuse to censor the news, to stifle dissent, to cover up our mistakes, or to withhold from the press and the public the facts they deserve to know. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no rumor is printed, no secret is revealed. No president should fear public scrutiny of his program, for from that scrutiny comes understanding, and from that understanding comes support or opposition, and both are necessary. I am not asking your newspapers to support an administration, but I am asking your help in the tremendous task of informing and alerting the American people, for I have complete confidence in the response and dedication of our citizens whenever they are fully informed. For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy, for it is no longer far away and foreign, but close at hand and local.